Okay, after talking to some people in class today, it appears that a lot of people were still kind of having some issues with some of the things we had gone over in this lesson. So I thought I'd make a little demo video, kind of going back over the lesson again and kind of giving you maybe a little bit more information on some of this. First things first, you're not animating this ball. You are animating these controls for the ball. This is what's called a rig. If you start setting keyframes on this ball, it's gonna, you don't need to do that. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to make it to where I can't select that ball at all. Okay, I don't want to select mesh. I'm selecting these curves and animating those. And so I don't want to accidentally click that and be annoyed by all that. So if I just uncheck this little button right here, I'll now no longer be able to select meshes. And it's just sort of a temporary way of it kind of keeping me from selecting that. The other thing is, this is just your placement controller. If you want to use that, that's fine to animate, but it's in the future. It's less of a good idea when you get into more complicated rigs. So usually I just use this to place my ball where I want it to start, and then I just leave it there. So I mean, like if our ball is going to start animating from up here in the top of the screen, then that's where I'll start it, and then I just never move it again. I don't set any keyframes on it. What we are going to keyframe is the blue ring that goes all the way around the ball. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit 6 so we can see the stripe on the ball. And so the first thing we're going to do is kind of set up the camera we want to be able to see this from, right? So I can go to create. We can make us a separate camera if we want to. Panels, look through camera 1. And I can get in here and sort of get. There we go. So the best way to kind of frame this up. Maybe something like this, where we're just looking at it from a side angle. I'm going to, I can turn on my resolution gate, and this will show me what will render. And so if I set this to an HD resolution, like HD 720, and then we can kind of see what we're going to be able to see and what we're not. And so this will give us a good idea of where we should start our animation. So let's say I want to start my animation outside of the viewable area, and this is my loose plan. I want my ball to sort of bounce in and maybe sort of roll and sort of hit a box and then roll back. Okay, so let's go ahead and get a little box in here for my ball to run into. And I'm also going to lock my camera now that I know where I want my camera to be. Something like that. So say this is where I want my camera to be. I'm going to select the camera by clicking this button, and then I'm just going to highlight all of these channels, right click, and say lock selected. Okay, and so now I can't move my camera 1 that I just created. I can still go back to my perspective camera, which I did that just by holding the spacebar down and clicking, dragging up. Another way to do that is to go to panels, perspective, and I can set this up to where I can see it from both angles. But right now I'm actually just going to do most of my animation from this camera. And now I'm going to start by grabbing my blue ring, and I'm just going to start setting keyframes on that. Now I'm going to set my frame range to about 120. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate the ball sort of doing 2 bounces, hitting the wall, and sort of rolling to a stop. Maybe 3 small bounces. And so that's going to be the entire animation, right? So let's go ahead and get started now. First things first, I'm just going to hit S, and that's going to set a keyframe on the blue ring again, not the actual ball mesh. Okay, so what I'm actually doing is I'm just going to start setting my keyframes for where I want the ball to be. Okay, so let's say, just taking a guess, let's try 7 frames. I may have to retime this later. And so we'll say that from frame 1 to 7, I hit S. Now again, by hitting S, I'm setting a keyframe on everything, not just the two channels that I changed. And so now if I use the period and the comma key, which is also the greater than less than key, you can see I can step back and forth between those two frames. Okay? And so now I can just keep going. Let's see, maybe go to 13, something like that. Make my next keyframe. Hit S. And so now you can see what I get. Now this is a little different than how we actually did it in class, because you'll see that I'm actually setting it on my X, my Y, and my Z. I'm moving it forward and up and down. And because there's a lot of different ways that we could do this kind of animation. So let's go ahead, maybe 18, hit S. Go ahead and move it to here. See how that looks. So let's see, like, just now, just kind of eyeballing it, it feels like it moves a pretty big distance on this first bounce, but maybe not quite as big on the second. Maybe I'll do something like that. There. And so I'm just kind of going through here. Again, I have my auto key turned on. Now, watch what happens if I don't have auto key turned on. Let's say I go here to frame 20, auto key is turned off, and I'm like, okay, I want to move this up here and here for my next keyframe. If I click on my timeline and scrub, it'll pop back down there and I'll lose that. So auto key means I can move it around, but it's not going to set a keyframe until I hit the S key. If I turn on auto key, though, it will automatically sort of set keyframes for me. So let's go ahead and, so we know the next one is going to be maybe a little like this. And I'm actually going to uncheck this. I'm going to scoot this box a little closer just so we can have the collision happen a little earlier. Also going to sort of extend my ground plane here. Just in general, make the entire world a little bigger. And then I'll turn that back off. I just did that for sort of placement here. Okay, so let's say this is what I have going on now. I think that maybe I would have this one be a little higher. I'm not already taking it back down, but just kind of adjusting it so it seems consistent on the bounce. I feel like that second bounce just feels like it goes further, doesn't it? So let's kind of play around with the spacing of it. So that's a little too far forward. And so maybe right about there. Now keep in mind, I'm not going to go quite as far because I want it to hit the wall. This is where I'm going to have it come into contact with the wall. Okay? Okay, and then maybe, we'll say there, it will be back down on the ground, like here. And so now if I watch this, let's see how the timing looks. Not bad. And then I'm just going to have it kind of slow to a stop. 50, say right about there. Okay, and so I'm just going to go ahead and set my keyframes. Again, what I'm doing is I'm just using my bracket keys and making sure I have a keyframe on everything. Okay, so again, all I've really changed is my Y and my Z axes. So if we watch this, okay, we'll try that and just see how that's feeling. Okay, let me see. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sort of look at our curves and our graph editor for this control that we have here. So I can go Window, Animation Editor, Graph Editor, and it will bring it up here. And you know what, this isn't the best way to do that. Let's do this more as a panel. So I'll click this button here, which will sort of split my window in two. Make sure I'm showing camera. And so now what I get is this. It's a little harder to see. If you have multiple monitors, which you would if you're working in the labs, you can kind of split this up. You can put your graph editor over on the other screen or whatever. But this will give us a better idea. Okay, so again, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the two channels that we set keyframes on: Translate Y and Translate Z. Translate Y is our up and down, so let's look at it first. I've clicked on Translate Y, nothing has shown up in my frame here. So if I click this little blue button here, it's going to frame it for me. Okay, and I can kind of see the curves. And same with Z. Another option for that is just to hit the F key, and it will frame it as well. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go in here and we're going to kind of adjust this because, again, it's approaching the ground and it's sort of slowing down here, right? So we want to work on breaking that tangent, okay? Because I could try to manipulate it now, but you can see I'm not really getting the result I want. Now again, in case anybody's forgotten, how you manipulate a key is you can drag select it. I usually drag select because then it's very specific that you're grabbing that key. If I try to click on it and I miss, sometimes I end up selecting the entire curve, because if you click the curve, it will select the entire curve. So the easiest way to select your key is just to drag select, and then you can drag select the tangent as well. And then you use your middle mouse button to adjust the tangent. Okay, so let's go ahead and break this tangent. And I'll do that just by clicking this. And what that's going to do is that's going to allow me to manipulate the tangents individually. Okay, and so I'm getting something like that. I'm also going to break these two tangents. Okay, and then let's see that I can get stuff like this. The same buttons you would use to push in and out of your camera, which is Alt and then right click, is how you also push in and out of your graph editor, so you can navigate that way. And so I want to do something like that. Well, let's just see how that's looking now. Okay, not bad. So again, this is a little bit more complex than the one we did in class, right? So we've got our Translate Y looking pretty good. Let's look at our Translate Z. So we know what's happening is the ball is moving forward. It's probably going to start losing some energy here, and then it's going to hit this wall and change directions like very quickly, right? And then it's going to slow to a stop. So let's see if we can edit this curve to show that. First thing is I'm just going to set this to linear, because that will sort of start it into that. And then I can delete some of these keys if I wanted to, or I can manipulate them. Now in class what we did is we actually created our forward curve inside of the graph editor. There's not really a set rule about how you have to do this or whether one is easier than the other. As I've explained, like there's really probably 6, 7 different ways that I could make this same exact animation. It doesn't matter if you're setting the keys to create the curve or if you're actually going inside of the curve editor and sort of manually changing them yourself. All that matters is that the resulting curve is what you want it to be. And so now we're here at this point here. We want to change directions pretty suddenly. And so again, I'm going to break this tangent. Something like this. And so this will make it look like the ball changes directions pretty quickly. And then the last thing I want is to kind of get a little bit of this like slowly coming to a stop here. And so if we hit play now on this, let's see how this looks. Okay, it bounces off a little fast. We'll fix that in the next video because I'm actually running out of time. So we'll look at this in the next video, play with the squash and stretch, and fix some of the timing.